Meanwhile, Miami Mayor Francis Suarez calling out President Biden in a recent Newsweek opinion piece. The mayor writing, quote, "Instead of appealing to our shared hopes, Biden stoked our deepest fears. Instead of advancing an innovative national agenda, he retreated to warn partisan divisions." Joining me right now to talk about that and more and the success of Miami is Miami Mayor himself, Francis Suarez. Mr. Mayor, it's great to see you as always. Thank you so much for being here. President Biden campaigned on being a unifier, unifying this country. He's failed to do that. What should he be doing?
Well, that's precisely what he should be doing, is unifying the country. That's what all public officials should do. That should be always our focus. Instead, what he's chosen to do is demonize people who don't see the world the way he does. He hasn't done anything to promote innovation in areas that are extremely important, like education, for example, competition in education. Obviously, the runaway spending has created all kinds of issues related to increases in rental prices throughout the nation, which is causing a tremendous amount of pressure on people, increases in energy, increases in food, historic inflation. Cities like Miami, we've balanced our budget. We have surpluses, believe it or not. We actually have more money in our bank account than we spend, which I know is unheard of in government speak. But because of that, we have 1.4% unemployment. We had 12% growth last year, the second most growth in recorded history. So, while our president decides he wants to divide us, to distract us, I think, we are in Miami staying united and growing.
Yeah. Well, I think the growth numbers that you're talking about are just outstanding. And the fact that you have a surplus, we're talking about the deficit growing on a national level, and you're looking at a surplus in Florida. What are you doing with that money, Mayor, in Miami? Are you continuing to invest in innovation, trying to lure tech companies there to Miami? How are you using that money?
Well, the first thing we did was we did a tax cut. We actually had the lowest taxes in recorded history. Last year, I cut taxes. The second thing we've done is we've invested in our infrastructure. We know we're going to continue to grow. We grew by a big percentage last year. And we know that we have hurricanes and things that we have to deal with. And so for the first time in our history, FEMA actually reduced our flood risk, meaning that Miami is actually less risky for flooding, according to FEMA, which actually reduces flood insurance premiums by about 5% for people in flood areas. And it also goes against one of the large counter narratives that, people across America have tried to brand Miami as a city that's going to be underwater in 10 years or 20 years. On the contrary, we've invested wisely, and FEMA has recognized it, reducing premiums and reducing our risk profile.
What are you expecting in terms of the economic backdrop, Mr. Mayor? Because, look, you've had all of these big shots, financial services companies move their businesses to Florida, many to Miami, and yet they're also talking about a very tough economy in 2023, given the Federal Reserve raising interest rates and evidence that we're seeing demand destruction. What are you expecting in Miami?
Well, I think Miami is sort of a counter-narrative and a beacon of hope. You have people migrating from across the United States. I still think we're sort of in the early innings of that process. And then, because of this administration's sort of incoherent foreign policy, you have, unfortunately, countries in South America that are continuing to go socialist, with Colombia recently. Brazil is teetering. Obviously, Argentina, Chile, Venezuela, of course. And so that produces a tremendous amount of demand pressure for the city of Miami, people migrating from all those countries to Miami. And that also propels our economy, even in the face of some of these national economic and international economic headwinds.
Mayor Suarez, have you seen a big impact from the wide open border? I know that your governor, obviously Ron DeSantis, put 50 people in a bus and sent them to Martha's Vineyard. I want to know, in terms of Miami, do you see a significant number of migrants illegally coming into Miami from the border? Because a lot of the AGs out there say every state is a border state now.
Yeah. You know, Miami is a bit of a different story because obviously in Miami, there's so many people that are fleeing political persecution. You know, we have a huge, very large Cuban population here that fled Castro's communism. Obviously, we have a tremendous amount of Venezuelans that obviously fled Chavez and Maduro. So it's a little different in Miami. We're very, very much accustomed to having immigrants from across the world. In terms of illegal immigrants, you know, it's not something that is a major issue for us, but it's something that's a major issue for this country in terms of having a coherent conversation on the issue and understanding that there are economic impacts and that it is a national security issue. And I think, unfortunately, we haven't had a coherent conversation on it. But I will say this, you know, I think for Republicans, there's an opportunity here, right? We've seen in poll after poll that Hispanics are trending Republican. So I definitely think that there's an opportunity for Republicans to be the solver of this issue and benefit politically, potentially for a generation.
Yeah, the Hispanics populations are really moving to the GOP because their issues are the same as the rest of our issues. Everybody has the same issues. Inflation, we want a secure place for our family, national security. But, Mr. Mayor, every time we speak, you continue to look at the issues of the country and look for solutions, and you have used Miami as a real template, which is why many people expect that you will have your name on the ballot in 2024 as a presidential contender. You were on this program last month, and I asked you about a 2024 run for president. And I want to play your response back then. Here's what you told me.
Look, it's a long way away. Right now, I'm excited to preside over the presidency of the U.S. Conference of Mayors and try to convince other mayors across America that the Miami model works, that they need to adopt it so that they can create prosperity in their cities. If that continues to work and if Miami continues to be successful, then I think there's going to be a tremendous amount of options available for me politically if I decide that I want to continue to serve. We're, of course, doing our due diligence and, you know, of course, doing what I have to do as mayor to try to continue to highlight the things that are happening in Miami, which we think, again, should be a model for the rest of the country.
So, Mayor Suarez, what have you been doing in preparation of a potential run?
Been doing my job. That's the first thing that I've been doing. You know, and of course, like I said, creating a huge counter narrative to what's happening in urban American cities. We're hopefully on the cusp of having, you know, we're about 3/4 of the year in to having the lowest homicide rate since the 1930s. Like I said, we have the lowest tax rate in recorded history since our government began, the lowest millage rate. And I do think, you know, keeping people safe, keeping taxes low, and leaning into innovation is a model for success for this country. Now, you know, presidential elections are you know, a sort of a litmus test of the mood of the country, and we'll see, you know, where the country's at. You know, do they want, you know, someone who's inspirational and aspirational and has a vision for the future? Do they want a next generation candidate? Do they want a mayor? Those are all questions that I think need to be answered over the coming months for me to make a decision on something like that, of that magnitude.
Well, you're coming off of a fantastic performance, Mayor Suarez. It's great to catch up with you. Wow, 12% growth. What a model to look at as we look ahead to a potential recession and a severe one for the country. Mayor Suarez, great to talk with you. Thank you, sir.
Sad.